I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do my videos on my iPad. I'm not going to use my phone much anymore. And so the quality's going to suffer, but I don't really care. Makes me look better, right? I mean, look at the lighting. Eh? Um, I have a better stand for it, and I can set it on my lap on my pillow and talk with my hands free. Okay, so I'm trying to decide the order. You know, when I try to do these videos, this will be the third time that I've attempted to do a full, complete, beginning to end series on my near death experience, how it affected my life, and where I've come to here, finally towards the end of my life. The lessons I learned, the the striking way that it affected my life in a negative manner versus most adults who have a near death experience, and they get so much love and beauty and understanding in their life from it because they're mature. And I had to become that older person. I had to become that person before I understood why they protected me from so much information and why throughout my life I would go, holy shit, this is one of those slices that I pulled out. And I would know what it is. And I would call it deja vu. I would call it, chance. The odds of me thinking about this at this time, because I think about it a lot and formed a picture in my mind. That's what it was. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. That's what I would tell myself. The act of dying, um, here we go. The act of dying, pretty simple, really. Nothing complicated. And so I think I'll start with that today without trying to get too deep into what I want to talk about. So I had this extreme love of watermelons. I was in, it's hard because I've tried to nail down the age, but when my mom died, really, she just could guess too about how old I was when the year it actually happened. And so I try to stay away from that age, okay? But it was between, say kindergarten and first grade. I have lots of memories of smelling the food cooking at the school I went to for lunch. It's awesome. I still, when I smell that smell, those memories will come flooding back. My brain is very much hooked to my nose. I could have made money with this bad boy, man. I'm telling you. Same thing with my taste buds, okay? So watermelon, taste buds, watermelon. I just could. I mean, any opportunity. Well, it was not a good day. There was a very, very cold week, almost a week. Um, I'll talk about the algae that hurt my lungs, but a week or so after I drowned, the water was clear. It had killed all of the algae. The lake had gotten so cold. I think any other time I would have died, but because the temperature of the lake had dropped so much, and it was completely cloudy and rainy. And my mom said, Laren, they're not going to be there today. They're not going to bring watermelons today. And I was like, but they might. My mom was always so, she really, really did such a great effort. So she took me. And being the fish that I was, if there was water, I was going to be in it. And I was a skinny little blonde kid. And I was freezing cold. I mean, my lips were blue, and my mom's telling me to stay out of the water. I'm swimming and playing until the watermelon truck shows up. So it's a bay. Red Bud Park on Clear Lake, California. And there's a boat ramp and there's a park. Well, the distance where the park benches were, where people would eat the watermelon, the truck would pull up, there's little barbecue pits and things. Back then, I'm not sure what it looks like now. That was a good, let me see, 10, 20, 30, 40. It was 40 yards to the water from where the barbecue pits were, where my mom and everybody was at, under the trees, because it was sprinkling. It was sprinkling. And there was 4 or 5 other people there that were talking because everybody knew everybody. And I'm swimming, and I can remember yelling, which is how I rationalized this guy was listening to me yell at my mom, "Mom, watch me." So I would shimmy up these poles, like a telephone pole, pressurized wood. They were green. And it's what they hooked all the floating docks and things up to. And there was a big floating dock. It had giant styrofoam squares. And in the middle of the big squares was a small area where you could come up and breathe. You could see through the wood, you could see through the slats of the wood, and then the water would be fairly strange looking. You could see fish really deep because you're sitting in this shadow, right? Well, that's what I liked to do. I would shimmy up this pole and dive, shimmy up the pole and dive, shimmy up the pole and dive. And every time I would do that, I'm telling my mom, "Mom, watch, Mom." And she'd wave and I'd do my dive, you know what I mean? Well, it was at the corner of this, thing, right? It shaped a square here. So here's the post is right here that this thing is anchored to, and a post here. And this direction across this piece of water is 60 yards, and from there is another 40. So it's 100 yards from here to where my mom is at. And so I would dive off this direction, and then I would do an underwater turn and come up underneath where the hollow spot was. Well, number one, the water was thick with algae. I mean, thick. You would be covered with it when you came out. This cold front was killing it. And it was kind of concentrating in these areas deeper in the water. Like it was dying, maybe. I don't know. What I do know is that it affected the water, the clarity of the water, as well as how much light I could see. Well, I'm used to seeing this light that would say, here's the edge. You swim over here, and you come up, about 25, 30 inches of styrofoam, and boom, you're out. And I had done it a lot of times, which is part of what confused me about what happened. And I understand it was the panic because I wasn't prepared. I was tired. I had been doing this over and over and over, and I was out of breath, and I really didn't understand that. And so I dive off, and I go underneath, and I can't find the bottom. And it's weird, too, because when I looked around for light, it all looked the same. My safety light, my light over here, swim towards the light, it was not the same. And I was very confused. And instead of just saying, fuck it, and just swimming out a ways in any direction and coming up, I decided to continue to try to find the middle piece. and I couldn't. And then I said, okay, well, now I need to leave. And I started panicking. And I distinctly remember incredible animalistic instinct of survival taking over. And this is part of the lesson that I learned. Okay? That took over, and I was literally scraping my fingernails on the styrofoam, trying to get to the edge. And what I was doing, I was probably just going around and around like this. Next thing I know, I get hit by a Mack truck. Bam! And the water is now fully daylight. It's not dark and gloomy anymore. It looks like a bright sunny day, and I'm underwater, and I'm looking at this little skinny blonde-haired kid like this, with his arms floating like this, just slowly floating down. And I knew it was me. And I said, oh, this is what it's like to die. And I wasn't afraid. And all the panic was gone. I really didn't even have any curiosity or anything. I was just amazed that what a beautiful process and how painless and how it's no big deal. I'm not thinking about my mom's going to be freaked out because I died or any of that. I'm just simply thinking, wow, so that's what it's like. And then, bam, I'm in this other place. And it's like a park, but at the same time there are pathways and flowers of every color, trees of every color. And I was floating at this angle like this. I was floating. And my feet, I knew that my feet weren't on the ground and that I was kind of like floating. It was part of the cool experience. And as I kind of came to a realization of, oh, wow, and as the place starts to solidify into a real place, there was two little girls. One was really small and one was young. And she looked at me and said, you're not supposed to be here. And I instantly knew that I looked really dirty to them and that she knew me and that she knew I wasn't supposed to be there. And right about then, they were gone, and these big beings came up around me. Just, I won't say shadows because they weren't shadows. They just didn't want me to see what they looked like. And they were happy to see me. They were happy to see me. And I started asking questions after questions, until I finally got to the question. Why the fuck would a child that young ask the meaning of life? I asked, why do we have to do that? And when I said do that, a picture of a million things came before me, and they knew exactly my question, not kind of my question. Not the ideal or the philosophical fucking meaning of my question. They knew my question. Billions of points of information. The simplest question. And they told me. And that answer that they told me affected me for years. For at least 5 years, I know that it scared the shit out of my mom, and she took me to see counselors. I had problems in school. I mean, it was tough because I was adamant. And then something strange happened. When they told me that answer, there really was no other question for me to ask. That's kind of how I feel. That encompassed everything, okay? And they said, so you have to go back. And at this point, I'm like, well, this is what they said. You don't have to go back. You can stay here, okay, but you can't have that. Now, they didn't say you could stay here forever. I didn't understand the concept of no time until I started looking at physics, okay, and what time really is. In that moment, when everything switched to a decision point, when they said I had to go back, I said something or I asked something, and they said, I don't know if I asked if I could stay, or I don't know what that was. That's one of the things that I think they blocked. They said, you can stay, but you can't have that. And what they showed me was what I explain as a pillar of light that was so pure and white and bright that 1,000,000 miles of lead wouldn't have darkened it the slightest bit. And surrounding that, by virtue of spirituality, righteousness, creators of good, positive information, were closest to the pillar, and that was God. And I knew it was God, and they knew I knew it was God. And no matter how wonderful it was where I was, and let me tell you, okay, you would, to hell with your kids, to hell with my family. I could care less about my grandkids. They mean nothing here. And that is hard to understand, but that is exactly what it's like, okay? You are no longer an animal there. You are now a true spiritual being. And where I was, I didn't care about going back. Never gave it a second thought until they showed me that. And being in a place consumed, completely enshrouded by love and understanding and acceptance and just so much beauty, okay? It was nothing compared to God. Compared to what they showed me, it was nothing. There was no meaning to where I was. It was just a wonderful place, but there was no meaning left for me to continue to exist for any reason, okay? The reason is to go back to God. And then I felt like I had been tricked. They took me to a room. There were 2 rooms, actually, 2 buildings. And I pictured them as like a giant library from New York, okay? But they were small. But when you went in, it was infinitely large. And there was a book, and they opened the book up, and I used to always think about the book. And see, it's why I've always been an avid reader my whole life. You see, the book it's just information. It's a way of symbolizing a place for information to exist. They opened the page up, and that was where I talk about the gray wall existed. There's no index to this book. When they opened that up, this part over here was unreadable, unlookable, it almost didn't exist there, if that kind of makes any sense. And the very first page was when I looked, I saw every female on earth. Is that crazy? And I remember it. It's so bizarre. And they said, choose. Now, they didn't say choose. I want you to know that when that page was open, I am now part of this information, this book, okay? And everything I'm relating and whatnot is the beings that were in the book with me. Not these, the ones that were here, then, that time. And they said, choose. They said, choose. The same thing. They were same. I was the same kind of in a place with beings, okay? But I don't know what the situation was. I just know that I was shown the entire earth. Now, I'm seeing this in the book, okay? But I believe when it happened, it wasn't, I'm not looking at a book flipping pages. This is where my information was contained. This event happened, I think, in the gray place. And I knew instantly it was her. I knew instantly it was her. I believe we all do this. That's the deterministic version of my universe, is that the information was created over here in the gray area. And we're now playing it out in a physical way for a reason. And when they told me that reason, all I could think of for many, many, many years was, of course. It was so overwhelmingly stupid that I had even asked that question. Of course, that is the answer. Of course. Well, they didn't let me remember the answer, but they let me remember, of course. Of course, that's what it is. Of course. And as a child, year after year of driving my mom crazy, taking me to every religious entity there was and all the reading I did. I mean, I literally, from the Torah and Lam Song Rampa to the Old Testament, New Testament, Good News for Man, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, Indian, American Indian religion. I pretty much went everywhere looking. And I found all the common thread was all that it was evil. That it was men controlling men, or men trying to explain things they couldn't explain. That was it. It had nothing to do with what I was shown and what the God I saw. He was way more pure and simple than the shit man makes up, okay? No, he's not a jealous, I'm the only God, I sent my only son. But what about all these other trillions of planets? Oh, well, I forgot to tell you about the other trillion sons that I sent. You know, come on. I tell people there is a God, okay? There is a reason why we live. There is a reason we are here. We are unique. All of us are unique in the information that we're going to create. All of us. This is why I'm so, you know, I need people who might contemplate suicide. First thing you do is talk to your friends, family, and there are helplines, okay? Because I think it's in some ways it's almost, I understand that you're smart and that you have a really deep, caring soul, and it's being ripped apart here because you see the truth, because you're not stupid, you're not sucked in by religion. You try to play the game, but you can't because you understand the truth. Those are the people I'm supposed to talk to and say, no, because you'll go there where I went, and you'll stay there for 1 billion years. It doesn't matter. Everything is going to go on without you. But your information will be fulfilled. And you will be dropped right back in again. And you may make a bad choice, and make a bad choice, and make a bad choice. And you might do that 1 billion times until one day you don't. But God gives you that opportunity, unlimited opportunities to do the right thing. And that is to stick it out and live with the ugliness. Trust me, your end will come soon enough. But the fear of death is instinct. The panic. I remember the panic almost as much as I remember, of course, the panic. It was something that if any rational intelligence in the universe ever wants to access that memory from me in that place where we go, they'll understand what human panic is. And it was sheer. It wasn't a thinking moment like adults do. Okay, it was just sheer animalistic panic. And then there's so much in there. There's so much contained within that little short story. So much contained in there that it's going to take me weeks to talk about it. the next thing to happen was a miracle. And I truly believe that everybody is where they are when they're supposed to be, that they chose to do that. They chose to do that. They chose to be there at that moment. They chose, all this information is created beforehand. This is an illusion. That was real where it was created. That was real, okay? And nothing here is permanent. You can change it anytime you want. That's another power God gave us. It's just so awesome how well he treats us for what we do. That miracle was the guy who saved me. So I don't know if he was at the boat ramp or if he was at the park, but I tend to think he was at the park. That's where he took me. So I don't know if he swam to the beach or if he swam over to the boardwalk, the boards that they had to keep the waves from washing away the shore. Because where I woke up was the street between where, the 30 yards to the water and the, 20 yards to the barbecues under the trees. I'm in the middle of the street where he's giving me CPR. So they counted 6 minutes. Somebody timed it because for some reason they were going to pronounce me dead after 5 minutes or something. I don't know what it was. But at 6 minutes, everyone was saying I was dead. That's what my mom told me. He's dead. And, my mom's freaking out and this guy wouldn't give up. Just wouldn't give up. Now, he had to understand I was in trouble because I was going underneath of this thing like everyone did. It wasn't an unusual thing. I could have been under there for 10 minutes and anyone else, I believe, would have just assumed that I was underneath the giant floating buoy. It was a dock, actually, that people, all the teenagers, the 15-year-olds went to kiss and shit was underneath it there. That was the cool place. So he had to either wait and assume for a while, like, okay, this kid hasn't come up. And then he had to find me. So he had to cross that 35 yards, 40 yards, dive into the water, swim another 25, 35 yards to get to me. Then he had to find me, get me back to shore, and then did CPR for over 6 minutes. The guy not only was fast, an incredible swimmer, trained in CPR, and was not going to give up. That's a miracle. I don't know if no one else probably even thought I was in trouble. That guy was supposed to be there. Now, I've seen things and experienced things in my life that I'll talk about because I'm not afraid to talk about them, that I can't I can't explain. I have to put it in the category basically of what people would term supernatural, but I don't see it as that. I see it as information in time that I'm accessing out of time. And where I'm in a place, in a time where I don't really belong, and I'm seeing this information, or this information is being broadcast for me to see it, but it's in a 3-dimensional way, okay, as in reality. No physical, but visually as reality. I talk about the young black kid with the guy with the truck. I'll talk about that also. But that was a miracle. He was the guy. He was the man. Not just an athletic runner, swimmer, determined, but he was sharp enough to understand and go, this kid's in trouble. I don't know if he saw bubbles. I don't. Maybe he did see bubbles. I don't know. But out of every, there were a few people doing boat launches and just very few people because it was such a shitty fucking day. It wasn't crowded. Maybe that's what saved me because there wasn't any other kid swimming for his attention to be drawn to. Again, he was sitting somewhere where he could see me and he was fucking paying attention. And he was the guy that was rational and did the thoughts in his head to say the kid's in trouble. He was the one that was able to get out there and find me fast enough to get me back to the road and start CPR and knew exactly what to do, how to empty my lungs. I mean, he knew exactly what to do. My mom said he was very professional. And when I woke up, because I had been tricked, I'll talk about that. I had been tricked. I attacked him. You see, and I've always felt so bad about that. And as soon as I started YouTube, I said, if you were ever at Red Bud Park, you know what I mean? Like 1961, 60, something like, and you saved a little boy, thank you very much. I hope I've honored your saving me. When I came back, it was violent, and I was mad because I felt I had been tricked. You see, the first page in the book, picking my mom, that was a beautiful moment, and I'll always cherish that memory of that event because for me, it's real. Now it's real. Man, what they showed me when I went back, they showed me right up to the moment when I drowned. And then the next page was when I went back from the very moment that I was aware and creating information once again. From there all the way until this special moment in my life, which was a why. I was going to make a very crucial decision at that point. All of this was so ugly. War, death, murder. It was so, humankind was so disappointing, including myself. Yeah. And the pain that I would be suffering. And as I was seeing this information, it was perfect. Every single second, instant of it was there. Every shameful, happy, sad, whatever event of your life. Perfectly preserved. And it was horrifying. And at that moment, I thought, I don't want to go back. And it's not that I had forgot about God, but I remember them saying I could stay. And I knew that I could stay. I could stay for a long time. What I didn't know was there was no way to avoid my timeline. And so, yeah, when they showed it to me, I was literally backing up in the air going, no, I changed my mind. And they said, but that's what you chose. A very key statement. That's what you chose. Bam. Another semi-truck, and I came awake, and they said I came up like a tiger. I didn't sit up and they said I came off the ground like a lion and attacked the guy. He's thinking, oh, well, that's from lack of oxygen. He was obviously having some sort of, delusional whatever. Right? You see, that's how I tried to, there was times, asphyxiation was one of the things that I thought, well, maybe it is just a lack of oxygen. No, because lack of oxygen doesn't show you the future, and it doesn't come true. You see, that's the difference. When they showed me from going back all the way to that why. Everything after that was a mystery. I feel like the last 20 years has been a gift where I've grown into a different person. It's a gift of happiness and being able to enjoy the end of my life and have love around me, you know? I feel gifted. I feel so incredibly fortunate. And all the ugliness that I saw, it's all come true. But I also know that I got off the bad path. I did not make the bad selfish decision that I was going to make. I made a different choice for other people. And in that was my salvation. That's why I'm supposed to be here right now talking to a few people so that they can understand to not fear death. The only thing I can tell you is to read other near-death experiences and compare it to what I've told you over the last decade and a half. What I've gleaned from it, what I've learned from it. Listen to others, and you'll see that that event is real. And it's kind of strange that it's classified as a supernatural thing because so many people have it and so many doctors are interested in it. My doctor was interested in it. I've had a few doctors that were interested in it. You see, because they can't explain what happens when I talk about the babies that were all blinded in oxygen chambers because some moronic physicians thought that putting babies in oxygen chambers would help them develop faster. Yeah. Okay, spam, spam, spam. I can only tell you, go look at others. If you truly want to know, you see, most people don't want to think about their mortality, and that is the problem because if you think death is just blackness, the choices you make in your life will be different. Especially if you're one of the fortunate billionaires. You see, they'll do anything to live longer. They take extremely good care of themselves. Okay? Not because they're afraid they're going to run out of money, they're going to run out of time, and they know it. There's nothing they can do about that. Okay? And if we ever come across the genetic coding for stopping the slow breakdown process, okay, where our mitochondria no longer start to function very well, our replicating DNA starts getting fucked up. I mean, the end comes to everyone. To them, it's blackness, and that's where their evil souls come from. That is where their evilness in them comes from, because the animal is in control. If the spirit was in control, they wouldn't have billions of dollars, and they'd be the happiest people in the world. They wouldn't have a care. They wouldn't be afraid of death. I know there are people out there that find it very hard, okay, but you're the important people. You're the ones that see the ugliness. You need to learn to speak out. That's the therapy. That's why I tell people, get a YouTube channel. It's good therapy. Share yourself and your thoughts with others, okay? As if you see ugliness in the world and you talk about it, other intelligent, rational, sane people are going to go, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel exactly the same way. I feel helpless. It's okay to say that because you are. By yourself, there's not a damn thing you can do about the system that has been put in place. No one, not even other billionaires, are going to interfere with this process. There's going to have to be either an outside intervention, okay, or an end. Because these diseased minds will never, ever give up their evil. They'll never give up. The animal side will never let them give up. It is in control, and it'll be in control until their last day. But I can tell you, they all have their own book. And there's no escaping it. And trillions upon trillions of intelligences are going to live your life. They'll know your triumphs and your defeats, okay? They'll know your best and your worst moments. This is the reason for existing around God. Every life learns from every other life that has been lived. Every life on this planet, all the billions of us, every life is different. All the lessons are different. Even though we want and need the same things, the lessons and how we learn and what we experience in life are individual to us, each one of us. And not only that, but time space-wise, okay? Time dilation is real, no matter how short the time span, okay? I'm sure that it's longer than a Planck time, traveling in different vectors, at different speeds, in different gravity fields, okay, affects your time as it relates to other people around you that have not moved in those same vectors in the same gravity field at the same speeds. And each one of us is in our own little separate piece of time space. That is one of the things that I learned by being there and by learning here. That is how time didn't exist there. The concept of time not existing somewhere is a little bit easier for me to understand in that frame. So, okay, we're at 41 minutes. I think I've talked enough today about my death and my resurrection. But I want to talk about the two little girls and the symbolisms of all the things that they showed me that throughout my life I've learned about. Okay?